Alrighty, let's have a quick update on all the pairs. Despite it having a high impact news on USD and CAD pairs today, USD CAD didn't move much, which is actually a surprise for me. But hey, again, if there were no setups, we wouldn't have entered, alright? But for USD CAD, it actually touched our key level twice, respecting an M5 setup and dropped in a total of 50 pips. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Now we were looking at this H4, right? This H4 was the one that closed right before I sent the analysis. So this was the H4 that we were looking at. So let me just put a line like this, right? If we hop onto M15, these two zones were the zones that I marked to monitor for both M5 and M15 setups. The M15 was an engulfing cell meets an engulfing cell, right? And my M5 over here was an engulfing cell also meeting multiple engulfing cells. Now when the price came up, M15 did not touch this particular zone and did not close within yet. But on M5, it created an engulfing cell and continued to respect it as well as it was in the key level. All right, so from the first drop over here to this is 27 pips, and the second drop from here to here, let me zoom in, get that wick, 23 pips. So in total, again, 50 pips for USD CAD on the same setup plus the key level on M5. Right now, both M5 and M15 timeframes really respect this zone right here and failed to break below. So on M5 and M15, these are engulfing buys, meets engulfing buys, meets engulfing buys, so on and so forth. So after respecting this and failing to break below, the price came up on M5, created an engulfing buy that broke this M5 sell zone, right? On M15, you would see that too. After creating an engulfing buy just right below, it respected over here, moved a bit, created an engulfing buy, and pushed the price up enough to break this engulfing cells zone, right? So after breaking, we know that the buyers are really trying to push price up. So these two sell zones or these two sell setups would have become invalid, right? So after that, the price decided to drop down below, poked around here, played around here, and decided to just shoot up. While doing that, it actually created M5 setups as it went. An engulfing cell that failed, created an engulfing buy, pushed. Then it broke this engulfing cell over here, pushed further, price came back, created a wick, and pushed up. Now, with this, because that was happening, it made H4 how it looks right now. Okay, so if it keeps this momentum going, excuse me, if this keeps this momentum going, this H4 will likely close above. And if it does, remember that the key levels, although it becomes invalid for a sell, you can potentially use it for a buy. If H4 decides to close above the zone, and then if it decides to retrace back into the key level, it could potentially want to use this particular key level for a better buy up to test this fresh zone up here for a sell. Okay, this would be a better sell because it's very fresh after it broke. Price did not retrace back, leaving any reactions or any wicks within the zone. All right, so that's for USD CAD. Again, congrats whoever caught the pips. It's 50 pips from the same setup. I was not monitoring USD CAD at all, but that's okay, right? Now, let's check this pair, Euro AUD. This was the start of it. Okay, now this is a very cool thing that happened, okay? The H4 closed right just above over here. Now, I was telling you that I wanted to monitor this zone because if it respected this particular engulfing fail, then the price should drop down below. And I told you that if H4 closes above this engulfing fail, then we know it potentially could want to climb and retest this sell zone to make or complete the sell setup as a BC, right? And it did exactly that. So this is what happened, right? So I'm going to move this to this real quick because I want to show you. Oh, you know what? I'll show you like this first. If I go to M15, you can see that where H4 potentially closed was this one. So if I move it on H4 to this one, right, you can see the end of H4 in M15. So this, just this one, right before the red line, it closed, excuse me, right above this H4's zone. And this was the last closing. This was the one that decided where the H4 was going to close, and it broke the zone. Hence, the H4 broke this. This becomes invalid for a sell, price pushed up. Okay? Now, if we look at it, excuse me, before H4 closing, the price actually created this whole thing, right? Before this H4 close on M15. It had an engulfing sell that broke, becoming an engulfing fail. So now we know that the buyers are trying to win over the sellers over here, right? But no confirmation yet. Price came down, played around, created an engulfing buy. Just slightly. If I do this, you can see that it closed right above the white, right? This white's high, like this. This candle closed right above it. So that is your first engulfing buy, right? It's our first engulfing buy. So now we have our A and our B. Price came back, played around, and this was its second engulfing. And after that happened, it was able to push it high enough for this M15 to close above the zone on H4 too. So it was the deciding M15 that caused the zone to break. After that, the price just came back. I told you if H4 closes above, then it will just retrace down to poke the key level for a buy, and it did right on the dot. Okay, so it happened over here. But let's look at just a little bit deeper so you can kind of see what happens in different time frames. Now on M5, it did the exact same thing. Engulfing sell, broke. In the process of breaking, it created this doji candle, which I took it for an engulfing buy. So this was my first engulfing buy. Again, this is very subjective to people. It's very subjective to different situations. So you have to adapt to it and try to use it to your advantage. All right, so this becomes my first engulfing buy. So we have our A, our B. Price came back, really played around over here, created the first engulfing buy that was able to close just right above. And this happened right after it poked the key level. So with that knowledge, right, you would know that the key level is quite strong. It created that engulfing buy over here. The price should just fly, and it did. So let's take it from the poke over here to the highest it made is 62 pips. Okay, so well done. 2 pairs so far, all in blues. All right, 62 pips on EA, 50 pips on UCAD. Now we go to the last pair. This was a bit disappointing for me. GJ did not move at all, and GJ I expected to be quite volatile because it usually is, but it did not come into any of our zones. It just played around this void over here. So we are not going to force it to come. If it wants to come, it will come. So if you want to trade GJ, you still can. You can use these levels if you want to, because H4 has not broken it yet. So as long as H4 respects these zones, you can still use the key levels for a buy or sell. All right, congrats again. Have a good night, and we'll try to see 3 more pairs tomorrow. Bye.